Hi, I'm Greg Martin. I'm Director of Jennings County Parks and Recreation. I manage the Muscatatuck Park, and we also manage Eco Lake Park. The Muscatatuck Park was Indiana's fourth state park. In 1921, they named the fourth state park Vinegar Mill State Park. Oddly enough, the very next year, in 1922, they changed the state park name to Muscatatuck, named it after the river. In 1954, the park adopted a quail raising operation, so the name of the facility was named Muscatatuck State Park and Game Farm. That only lasted for about 8 years, and then went back to a state park exclusively, and the management theme of that era was youth camps. Now that initiative didn't last longer either, so from 62 to 68, the state changed their plans, and essentially they gave the property back to the residents of Jennings County. So it became a county park in 1968. Since that time, in general, we've managed with the mission statement, like the original state park, we want to retain the history and the natural preservation of the property. We also act a good amount like a community park. We have a lot of family reunions, weddings, we have a community building, and then we also host a good amount of special events. Today we have a trail running and mountain biking race on the property. A couple weeks from now we have an obstacle race, we have a beer and wine festival, car shows, you name it. So we do a little bit of everything, but we are what used to be Indiana's fourth state park. The Muscatatuck Park, it was a state park in 1921, but the history of the park predates that significantly. In 1840s, William Reed created a stone cutting mill at the intersection of the Canyon Creek and the Muscatatuck River. And the name, oddly, is Vinegar Mill, but this stone cutting mill was an early pioneer addition to Jennings County. And when William started his quarry, subsequently he decided to build his house, a prominent structure on an overlook overlooking his stone cutting mill. So William Reed created his home in roughly 1850. The William Reed home, it's a pioneer home. Essentially all of the materials for the pioneer home were harvested in the general area. The foundation blocks were harvested in his stone cutting mill. The oak and tulip poplar for floors and walls were harvested from the natural forest, and the bricks were also baked on the property. William Reed also, well, his dad was Samuel Reed, and Samuel Reed was the main contractor for the Jennings County Courthouse, and the foundation blocks for the Jennings County Courthouse were harvested out of the Vinegar Mill. And then actually William was a certified builder along with his dad and his brothers on the courthouse. When the state park adopted the property, or when the state adopted the property for a state park in 1921, they took the William Reed home and they made it the Muscatatuck State Park Inn. It was a precursor to today's state park inns. Essentially, well, there were 4 or 5 cabins behind the home, and essentially worked like a bed and breakfast. So whether you stayed upstairs in the William Reed home or whether you stayed in the cabins, you come in for lunch and dinner and you get a home cooked meal. And it stayed State Park Inn throughout the duration of the state park era. When the state gave it back to the county, the local senior center adopted the building, the Red Brick Senior Group. It was a senior center throughout the 70s and the 80s. And in 1998, the Parks Department took management of the property, or the home, over again. We partnered with the local tourism department and we created the Jennings County Visitor Center. Unfortunately, the tourism department did some downsizing and they left the building, but the Parks Department today opens the William Reed home as a visitor and an interpretive center. And so if you have a question about the county, if you want to come in and pick up a brochure, we'll be glad to help you out. In the year 2000, we remodeled, or we refurbished the area, and we created a model of the old Vinegar Mill. So today you can go and you can see the ruins of the 1840 stones in conjunction with a new renovated structure that was modeled after the original mill. In conjunction with the mill, there was a dam roughly 500 feet north, and this supplied water to run the mill. And we're not for sure exactly if the water came on a trough or if it came by a mule, but essentially the operation of the mill had a limestone column, and it had two wheel sprockets, one at the bottom, one at the top. And they would, whether it was a mule or a trough, they would take the water, and the sprockets had an endless chain of buckets. So the water would go into the upper buckets, and essentially they would just use gravity to pull the buckets down, ultimately to run a gear and ultimately to run a saw cutting stone. And to me, this seems like a super crazy slow method of cutting stone, but apparently that's how the pioneers had to do it. As I mentioned, the WPA and the CCC did various improvements to the park during that era of the Depression. They built the original steps and the seat walls around the Vinegar Mill. They built a handful of bridges. They built the main road that goes through the Canyon Creek, and this is relatively substantial in that there's a 6-foot retaining wall throughout its length. So that was definitely a very big project. They also, the CCC, built a water tower, or a fire tower, excuse me. And but then they also built 2 small shelters. The shelter behind me has 2 fireplaces. It was built in 1937, and we have a smaller WPA shelter that was built in 1936. The Walnut Grove School, it's not original to our facility. It was moved here in 1990 and refurbished in 1991. The Walnut Grove Schoolhouse was originally built in 1913. It was north of the county in Sand Creek Township, about 10 miles. It's definitely interesting. There's old flyers showing pictures of the building cut into 4 pieces being transported on semi-trailers through the center of town. Basically, the project was spearheaded by the Jennings County Preservation Association, and for their work, they actually were awarded the Servas Memorial Award for outstanding preservation in that year. So the schoolhouse was in 1913. It can be toured if you want to come to the office, the William Reed Home. You can pick up a key and you can self-tour the schoolhouse during office hours. The Muscatatuck Park did receive a state historic marker in 1998. We applied for that grant and we were awarded it for many of the reasons that we've stated so far today. But primarily, our state historic markers for being Indiana's 4th state park. And in the future, Muscatatuck Park, we're looking forward to our 100th birthday. In 3 years, we'll have our 100th birthday on May 17th, 1921, and we're starting to do plans relative for that celebration. Aside from that, the Muscatatuck Park today is, our main focus is campgrounds and passive programming. We just put in a new playground last year. We have bids going out for new spray grounds in the next coming weeks. We are a hiker-friendly, mountain biker-friendly. We're one of the only places in Indiana where you can actually go rock climbing. We definitely support our history, and we love the natural beauty of Muscatatuck Park. And we invite you to come enjoy our facility. Thank you.